بهار تلویزیون د یووالي او پیوستون ریښتینی غږ.
And everyone watching today. Thank you so much for attending my show today, Universal Finance Academy. Again, I just wanted to remind you, my email is universalfinanceacademy@gmail.com. So if you'd like to email me any questions, either in Farsi, Dari, or English, anything, it doesn't matter, go ahead. And then again, my Facebook page is Universal Finance Academy. If you would like to watch my posts on there, and then if anyone has questions, I can post information on there as well. So we'll go ahead and start talking about today's topic, which is personal budgeting. Everyone needs to create their own budget, whether you're just trying to figure out something short term, like how to fund for a vacation, or something longer term, if you want to start buying a house. So I'm going to talk about some terms that will hopefully be helpful for everyone. So what is a budget? A budget is a spending plan that basically that includes your resources of income, includes your monthly and annual expenses, your future needs, and anything else that is important. Like if you have any emergencies, you should have something about emergencies. If you have short-term plans versus long-term plans, anything like that is important in regards to creating a budget. And then the next thing is, what is a balanced budget? So a balanced budget is basically a budget where you have everything that is currently happening in your life put down in some kind of organized manner that allows you to understand exactly what it is that you currently have at the moment, as well as being able to future forecast for anything in the future as well. So now let's go ahead and move on from there. So now we're going to talk about what is a deficit, which is kind of a hard word to understand if you've never heard it before. Basically, it's an excess of federal expenditures over federal revenues. Well, it doesn't have to be federal, it could be just personal expenditures and revenues. So an expenditure is basically something that is a loss. You've used it for some reason, you bought something, you got a loan, anything that you're using money and that money is going out is an expenditure. And then a revenue is anything that that's coming in, basically. Any money you're gaining, that's yours now. Whether it's like income, if you sold something and you got money for it, those are all sources of revenue. Now we'll go ahead and talk about discretionary income. So that's disposable income available for spending and saving after an individual has purchased the basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter. So disposable income is income that you can use for anything that you want. That's basically, money that is available to you because you've already, paid your bills, you've already bought all your food, you bought your necessities for that month. You're able to now spend money on other things. You could save that money if you wanted. You could put that money into the stock market, or you could buy things, like people buy, bigger TVs or newer cars, even if they don't need it, or the newest phone. That's basically what disposable income is, and what discretionary income is as well. So disposable income, again, it's after your taxes. So again, both of these types of incomes are after taxes have been taken out as well. So we'll continue from there. So what is credit? Credit is a financial arrangement in which money is borrowed for a purchase and paid back at a later date. It allows consumers to make purchases that they wouldn't be able to afford if they had to pay the full price in one installment. By spreading the costs over time, credit enables borrowers to make big-ticket purchases, such as homes and vehicles. Common forms of credit include loans and credit cards. So I hope that makes sense to a lot of people. Credit can be kind of confusing. Basically, what it is that let me fix this real quick. Basically, just allows you to buy something that's very expensive that you don't have the money at immediately over a longer time period and monthly payment installments. So that's what it is. So now we need to think about, why is it important to have credit? The system here is if you don't have credit, it's harder for you to buy, get bigger loans to buy bigger purchases like a home. So you have to start off with a small amount of credit, just getting a credit card, and then later on maybe getting a loan for a car, and always making sure to pay off things on time monthly is important for you. And by doing that, by paying those installments every month, you'll be able to increase your credit score, show you're responsible, and also know for yourself personally that you're able to pay off things in a regular time. So then we also have a credit report. So a credit report is a record of a borrower's credit history. It is produced by the credit bureaus and typically consists of 4 sections: personal information, financial account history, history of credit applications, and public records. The information in a credit report is used to calculate a consumer's credit score, which is one of the primary factors that lenders consider when evaluating a credit application. So that was a lot. Basically, a credit report is just the report of the history of all of your purchases involving credit specifically, whether you had some kind of loan or you purchased something using a credit card and then you had to pay that amount back over a specific period of time, and then also with on either a monthly basis or an annual basis, whatever it might have been, some kind of payment installations as well occurred. Then we have your credit score. A credit score is a 3-digit number that represents how likely a borrower is to repay a debt. It is calculated based on the information in a borrower's credit report and ranges from 300 to 850. Borrowers with high credit scores are viewed as more likely to repay debt obligations and are thus more likely to be approved for credit and receive lower interest rates. So a credit score is usually between 300 and 800, with 300 being the lowest score and 800 being the highest score. And 800 is the score that you want, but it's difficult to get for sure. So with most people who haven't started their credit, it's going to be around 0. And then for people who decide to get out a credit card or a loan and then don't pay it off on time, their credit is usually between the 300s and 400s. And then those who are able to pay their monthly installations, but they do it late, they're usually maybe around the 500s to low 600s. Once you get into 600s, it's usually meaning that you've had a pretty good credit score, a small amount of credit, but at least for a year. And then in order to get to the 700s, you want to have at least 3 to 4 lines of credit. And that can be like 1 or 2 credit cards. You could have a fixed loan. You could have a revolving loan. At least having 3 or 4 within a year or 2 years of lines of various types of credit shows that you are capable of being organized and understanding how to pay each of them on time. So that's when you would get around a 700, 750 score range. Now, in order to get a score higher above 750, you usually need to have at least a full-time job, at least a year or longer for sure. Have at least the 4 lines of credit or more if possible, but not too many. You don't want to have more than maybe like 6 at a time. That's too much. Also making sure that, you're paying everything on time and paying extra. If they see that you're paying extra, then that will also help your credit score as well. So those are all important factors in regards to your credit score, and that will also be reported on your credit report as well. So that's important to think about. So we'll go ahead and move on from there. So I wanted to talk kind of a little bit about intelligence as like a side topic. I'm hoping to add more topics in that people might be interested, talk about science, biology, chemistry, physics, talk about different types of engineering, talk about architecture, art, music, cooking. I want to be able to kind of help people learn about different things while also connecting it to finance as well, because I think that's important. So this is a poem that I found, and it's by Rumi. He wrote, "Two kinds of intelligence. There are two kinds of intelligence, one acquired. As a child in school, memories, facts, and concepts. With such intelligence, you rise in the world. There's another kind of tablet, one already completed and preserved inside of you. The other intelligence does not turn yellow or stagnant. It's fluid, and it doesn't move from outside to inside. Through the conduits of plumbing learning. The second knowing is a fountainhead, from within you, moving out." So I really like this because I think a lot of people have this kind of presumption that they are, unable to either be part of, get accepted into college or be part of a specific program that's a high-level program. They don't understand the different types of colleges that are out there. There's technical schools, there's associate degrees, there's ways to get an education beyond just going to university. And even within university, recognizing that even if you don't get into the specific program that you wanted to get into, that's okay, because in reality, your life changes. Where I was before and where I am now, I didn't realize that I would be here. And I think that it's important to realize that you have a lot of opportunities in many different areas. And realizing, that we do have an intelligence when we're born, and that intelligence is what allows us to have common sense, to be able to, live in society, to be a good person, and to easily, adjust and grow. But there's also a separate intelligence that each of us has that allows us to acquire skills and knowledge where we can help ourselves and people around us. People who are plumbers have gained the skill that a lot of people don't know, and without them, we wouldn't have very good systems. The people who are electricians are able to help with lighting and help keep everyone safe. People who are artists are cooks, or people who sew and design clothes. All of them are able to add into society something beneficial that everyone uses in their daily life. And their career path or their educational path might have not been what most people think as something normal. It's something that is kind of a different route of education or a different route of gaining skills. And I think it's important to acknowledge that those are just as important as going to a university for full 4 years or more than that. So I wanted to keep talking about intelligence just to kind of show the different types that are available. So we have verbal or linguistic. So that's the ability, you see really great speakers or actors, people who, talk on the radio and talk on TV. A lot of them have verbal or linguistic. They just have, really great abilities that allow them to speak and show their thought process to thousands or millions around the world. And that's, a type of intelligence. There are other people, who might be very smart, with math or science, but who are so afraid to just speak out loud when given the opportunity. We have the logical or mathematical type of intelligence, which is, very analytical. It's basically the type you think of when you think of someone smart in school. You think of someone who has logical or very mathematical intelligence. And while that's one of the many great ways to be to learn in school and to understand processes and analyze, it's not the only way. And I want people to realize that if you're not great at math or you're not great at science, don't worry. There's so many other ways to show your intelligence as well. But if you are great at math and science, there's so many opportunities in that field. So those who are more naturalist, they understand and connect with their surroundings, with nature. There's a lot of people, who are farmers, who are in agriculture and sustainability. You can be in sustainability for business, sustainability for engineering. There are ways to connect with your environment beyond, just creating a garden or, having a plant. That is a type of intelligence that allows you to understand how, how humans are affecting the environment, how pollution is affecting it, how technology affects your environment, and then how to better the environment as well, so that we all can benefit. Without trees, we wouldn't have oxygen or fruit. Without, clean water, we wouldn't be able to, survive, because we need water more than we need food. So that's I think a really important type of intelligence that I've had to gain this past year, learning about how I'm affecting the nature around me and how I can help better the nature around me. There's also like bodily or kinesthetic intelligence. So you usually see that, in like athletes and coaches, people who have the ability to use their body in ways that most of us don't know. If you've ever seen like American Ninja Warrior, or if you've seen shows where they compete against each other to win prizes or trophies, being able to understand your body and to benefit from, being a really great athlete, or some kind of, challenge that you can do, like a bodybuilder, anything like that, having that kind of intelligence is something that is an option for people as well. There's also like musical rhythmic intelligence. So people who, can sing, who can write music, who can play instruments, who can compose movie soundtracks. Those are all opportunities people who have might have if they have more of a musical type of intelligence. There's also like interpersonal or social intelligence. So if you think about people who've created, a lot of these social media apps that are very popular, Facebook, LinkedIn, anything that is important to, how people communicate, how people can connect and get together. They were aware of the need to have some kind of, social intelligence. And social intelligence can be anywhere. It can be in your school environment, in your family environment, in your work environment. If you don't get along with the people around you, if you're not able to create connections that are meaningful and developed, then you will have, a lot of issues in the future. So we'll go on from there into intrapersonal or introspective. And basically that allows you to kind of acknowledge the fact that you as a person individually have a lot to offer, and being able to understand, your if you don't know how to help yourself, then it's better not to help someone else until you've understood yourself. So that's a different type of intelligence I don't think a lot of people know about. Then we also have like visual or spatial intelligence. Though people who are very good at
آریانا سویتس. آریانا سویتس تولیدگر عالی ترین شیرینی باب خاص افغانی در امریکا، تهیه شده با بهترین مواد طبیعی خام و تازه. محصولات آریانا سویتس از سال 1988 تا امروز در معتبرترین مغازه‌های افغانی، ایرانی و هندی آماده فروش است. عالی ترین نقل، شیرپیره، رود، سیمیان، برنج سیله بسمتی با کیفیت عالی و انواع کلچه های خاص افغانی. برای معلومات و فرمایشات لطفاً به شماره تلفن 855 629 2327 و یا info@arianasweets.com مراجعه نمایید. طعمتان را با آریانا سویتس مزه‌دار سازید. آریانا سویتس. آریانا سویتس آریانا سویتس تولیدگر عالی ترین شیرینی باب خاص افغانی در امریکا، تهیه شده با بهترین مواد طبیعی خام و تازه. محصولات آریانا سویتس از سال 1988 تا امروز در معتبرترین مغازه‌های افغانی، ایرانی و هندی آماده فروش است. عالی ترین نقل، شیرپیره، رود، سیمیان، برنج سیله بسمتی با کیفیت عالی و انواع کلچه های خاص افغانی. برای معلومات و فرمایشات لطفاً به شماره تلفن 855 629 2327 و یا info@arianasweets.com مراجعه نمایید. طعمتان را با آریانا سویتس مزه‌دار سازید. آریانا سویتس.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for coming back again. We had just a little bit of technical difficulties, but now we're back. I'm just gonna go ahead and go over the types of intelligence again real quick from where I was stopped from. So we have verbal, which is the ability to be like a great speaker, to be on the radio, on the TV, like as a news reporter or a commentator. And those are all, or a teacher even, you know, being able to be communicate in either in writing or in speaking or in a different language. That's just a way of, that's a type of intelligence itself. Logical or mathematical, which is seen in a lot of schools as the most important type of intelligence. It is one of the hardest ones, but in my opinion, you know, if you don't excel in that type of intelligence, you know, there's so many other types and there's so many other, you know, careers and educational majors that you can get into. But with that one specifically, you know, people who are able to analyze problems and solve them, you know, they usually get into like math or in sciences or engineering. And we also have like naturalists, people who focus on their surroundings and their environment, you know, plants. They think about the land, they think about water, they think about marine life like fishes, they think about, you know, the type of what's happening with the weather and the temperature and how that affects human societies, animal populations. You know, having that type of intelligence is also part of science and it's also part of daily life. So it's important to focus on that as well and being sustainable in how we interact with our environments. That's a type of intelligence. You know, bodily or kinesthetic intelligence is important as well because it allows, you know, athletes, people who go to the Olympics, people who are bodybuilders or who are in competitions like American Ninja Warrior, for example, they are all able to use their body as a way to perform or to create money. And then there's musical or rhythmic types of intelligence, you know, being a singer, being a dancer, creating music, playing an instrument, you know, drawing or painting. These are all ways that are even like digital media nowadays is very popular with technology. The, you know, musical or even like our artistic intelligence is very important in our daily life. Without it, we wouldn't have beautiful buildings. We wouldn't have, you know, apps that are easily used. So it's something that a lot of people should take into consideration. There's interpersonal social intelligence. So, you know, that's being able to connect with other people, to understand them, to empathize with them, to create long-lasting relationships beyond just like on the surface. You know, when you're at work, you know, try to get to know your coworkers or employees. When you're with your students or if you have classmates, you know, go beyond just like doing homework with them. Try and have some kind of connection with them that shows them that you have a type of intelligence where you can connect and understand them and they can be there for you as well in the future. Then there's intrapersonal and introspective, which is an intelligence of understanding yourself, basically. So without understanding like who you are as a person, you'll never be able to kind of figure out what you want to do in in the future, what kind of person you want to be, how you can be someone who grows, internally as well as externally in various ways. And then we also have, so visual or spatial, people who, drive trains, for example, or who have to, create geographic maps around the world. Anyone who has to use, their vision or their spatial capabilities, their understanding of space and time, are all people who are important within our daily society. So just learning about these different types of intelligences and then learning your strengths and weaknesses is a great way to focus on what you can be in the future. And that will lead you to understanding the potential career paths that you have. So we'll move on from there. So we're going to go ahead and talk about debit cards. So unlike a credit card, a debit card immediately withdraws funds from the user's bank account. Debit cards are less likely to contribute to excessive debt than credit cards, but users face fees if they overdraw their account. So many people right now who are starting to, create accounts in the bank to try and build their credit. Most of the time you open up a checkings account and a savings account. And if you're a student, you can open up a student account, which I would say is better because they're usually more helpful with fees. And sometimes they give you like, for example, if you open it, I opened up one and I got like $100 for opening it as a student. So I would say for a debit card, it's basically when you get cash or you put cash onto that card or account, that is the money you have. It's not like you have extra money. When you spend it, it's gone. Versus a credit card, which is like money given to you by a bank or institution, that's not your money that you use and have to pay back over a certain amount of time. So, debit cards will usually allow you to not get into as much debt, but it will allow you to start your accounts and to figure out a way to budget yourself as well. So what is debt? Debt is the money that a borrower owes to a lender. It can be accrued through any form of borrowing: credit cards, mortgages, personal loans, and auto loans, among others. So debt is basically when you get a loan or you get a mortgage. And then it is something that accrues over time. You can have interest. So if I were to say get a loan for school for one semester, usually schools don't charge you too much interest depending on the type of loan you get, but they can sometimes. But that's money that you now owe to either the school itself or to the credit lender that the school works with. So it's important to have a list of all your debts in your budget. And to do that, you need to, create either a column area within your budget, or you need to have a separate tab on your Excel sheet. So I would, make sure, always write down your debts. You want to make sure you have, the name of the company that's your like lender. You want to have the amount that you owe in total, the amount of interest that is, the APR interest, for example, the amount of interest in total that you'll be paying back as well, and then the overall total with the interest and the debt. You'll want to put how you're paying it off. Is it a monthly balance? Stuff like that. And then that way, I also put like the start date of the loan and the end date of the loan that you want to finish paying it off. That way you can keep So we talked about debt and debit cards and what debt is in general. And now we'll talk about what it means to default, which is something that's really bad. So you never want to default on a loan or a credit line or anything like that. So a default occurs when a borrower is unable to meet the obligation of debt repayment. Default is the second and more serious stage of non-payment that follows the stage of delinquency. Once a loan enters default, the lender typically reports it to the credit bureaus and sells the debt to a collection agency. So let's kind of talk about some of the words. So obligation, so you're obligated or you're required to meet the payments on time for the loan you took out. So the first stage of not having a good, of starting to become into default is delinquency, which means that you've started to not pay on time or you're paying late, and sometimes you're not paying at all and you have to make it up later. And then default is eventually when, you know, the bank or the lender has had enough. You haven't paid for a certain amount of time that they find unacceptable, and they basically say either pay everything now or, you know, just you know, you either have to pay now or we're going to close everything. And they might even take whatever it is you had. Like if you bought a couch, they could take your couch back. Or if you had a house and you default on your mortgage, they can take your mortgage back and even take some of your stuff as well. So make sure to never get into default. Then there's diversification, a core principle of investing. Diversification spreads investments over different assets with varied risk potential. Diversification is a strategy to reduce the overall risk of loss. So in regards to diversification, you need to think about, we're only going to be thinking about like lines of credit and various types of in-bank products that you can get. I'm not going to talk about the stock market until later because you can diversify your portfolio in regards to stocks. But diversification, when it comes to just your personal finances, you know, you can get a checkings account, a savings account, emergency savings. You can get a CD, which is a certificate of deposit. You can get money market savings accounts, which when you have more money, you can get a higher interest rate to get money accumulated into your savings. You can get a regular credit card. You can get a fixed loan. You can get a revolving loan. You can get loans for specific things. For an auto loan is for a car, mortgages for a house. There's many others. You can get a line of equity, which is basically similar to like a line of credit, but equity deals more with like a building or a business. We'll get into that later, but those are the different types of ways you can diversify the types of bank products you have. So now we're going to go into an actual budget, like what it should look like. So I found just a general overall household monthly budget. So your budget is always going to be per month. You can create like an annual budget if you wanted to, but that's a lot harder because you never know what's going to happen 6 months, you know, to a year from now. So it's better just to have a monthly budget that you can use to forecast for the future. And then once you have several months of information, you can then use that to figure out, you know, next year if any changes happen to your income, if you have less expenses, if you have more expenses, what you would need to adjust to not be in the negative overall. So I'm going to go into the various parts of the budget. So here we have, let me go into the next part here. So here we have a monthly household budget. I'll try to show my screen a little bit closer, if possible. Okay, so we're going to start off with like income. And income usually involves, you know, wages or tips, which is the money you make when, you know, you're at a job. It's your interest income, which is income that you can get, you know, if you have like a savings account that gives you interest, if you have, you know, stocks that give you money over time, anything that involves interest where you're getting money back is interest income. There's dividends. So again, if you were to go into stocks, for example, you would be able to get money sometimes back depending on the type of company you're with. We have gifts received. So you should, think about the kinds of gifts that you're receiving from people. If someone gives you, $500 for your birthday, for example, or if you get a new TV as a birthday gift or as a gift from your company for doing a good job, and you decide to sell it or you decide to keep it, that can be income as well. We also have refunds or reimbursements. So, you get your tax refund at the end of the year if you overpaid. You can also get reimbursements for other places if you overpaid. So it's good to realize that you can get money randomly from other things that you didn't think about, and make sure to put that down within that specific month so you realize that you've gained some extra money that you didn't in your other months. And what will you do with that money is important as well. We have a transfer from savings, and if you have other sources of income. So if you ever have a savings account and you decide you need that money for that month, you would transfer it into your checking account, and that would also be kind of a source of income technically, because it's money that you've saved up to utilize in some way. If you have any other ways of income, gives you money on a monthly basis, or if you get Social Security, for example, that's a type of income. What expenses? So again, you have your total income minus your total expenses. Your income is what you're getting in. Your expenses are what you're paying for, your bills, etc. And so whatever you have left, if you're in the positive, you're doing good for the month. If you're in the negative, then you need to reevaluate the types of expenses you have. If you have expenses that are not necessary, you'll need to cut those out, such as eating out too much, or buying like games, or buying things that you don't always need the newest phone every year. You could wait an extra year to buy it, for example. So we'll go on from there. So now we have home expenses, savings, and obligations. So we'll start with the home expenses. So home expenses, your rent or your mortgage, your electricity, your gas, your water, your sewer, trash, your phone bill, your cable bill, your internet bill. If you are just bought a new appliance like a refrigerator or oven that you're paying off every month, that could be expense. If you've paid it off, then you wouldn't include it into your budget. If someone takes care of your garden or does your lawn for you, that's an expense. Home supplies, cleaning, if you need to buy, pillows, or if you need to buy carpet, stuff like that, those are home expenses. Maintenance, if something breaks, like a water pipe, you'll have to make sure you have some kind of money in case something ever stops working within your house or your apartment. Improvements and other, if you decide to, paint the house to make it look new, or, add a fireplace, that could be like an improvement. That is also an expense. That's a home expense. So then we have our savings right here. That's you have your emergency fund for any emergencies. Again, you want to have at least 2 months of paychecks in your emergency fund. You'll have your car replacement loan. If anything ever breaks down in your car, or if you need to replace your car, if there's if it gets into an accident or something, make sure to have money for that. Retirement fund, start saving as soon as you can for your retirement. And then investments, if you have any investments that you're saving, if you're either saving for your children for education, or if you yourself are deciding to go to school, maybe having an education fund in case you don't get enough scholarships or financial aid is important. And then again, if there's any other types of savings you wanted to have, like if you wanted to go on a vacation, you could have a vacation savings specific to that. Then we also have obligations. So obligations, you have, anything that you have to pay back, basically student loans, credit card debt, other loans, child support, federal taxes. So all of those are obligations or things that you have to pay back. So make sure to keep track of that is very important. So now we'll keep going on to kind of the next sections within a budget. So we have, daily living expenses, we have, and business expenses. So the daily living expenses, just right here, we have groceries, personal, supplies, clothing, cleaning services, dining, eating out, dry cleaning, salon, barber, and anything else that could come up. These are all things that may not be like day to day, but they are things that affect you on a daily basis. You're always wanting to have food in your home. You always want to have like clean clothes. You always, want to have some money to buy, shampoo or hairbrush, for example. So those are all part of your expenses as well. And then at the very bottom here, we have business expenses. So here, we have deductible expenses, non-deductible expenses, and any other. So this is if you specifically have a business. I'm going to go into business expenses in the future, so we don't really have to pay attention to that right now. But I will go into it in further detail in the future for sure. So now we'll kind of go to the last two parts that you want in your budget. So we have, if you have any children, most people think, having children is just part of your overall expenses, but in reality, that's an additional cost that you're going to have to figure out, their medical needs, their clothing needs, tuition for them, lunch for them, school supplies, babysitting. So if you ever decide to have kids, look at your current budget and see if you are in the positive and if you are good. And then add in this section for children and figure out, how will your expenses change based on having a child, and then figure out the cost of that. And if you're still in the positive, then I would say, you're good to go. You should be fine. Also, there's, everyone wants to have some kind of entertainment in their life, going out to the movies, going out to restaurants, going to the opera, anything that, gives you some kind of entertainment or joy, even your hobbies. So some of the things, are activities, books, games, fun stuff, hobbies. These are all parts of what keeps someone happy and content with their life, and also brings joy and allows people to come together, and also helps create revenue within the economy. So, people spending on things that they like is important, but also making sure you don't overspend. So if you notice that in this area you have a lot of expenses and you're in the negative, this is probably the area that you're first going to want to cut out any purchases that you're making on a monthly basis. So that's really an important thing to think about. So that was really everything today for budgeting. So I just wanted to remind everyone again, if you ever have any questions or you want to learn about anything, feel free to ask me or email me either in the comments or in my email, universalfinanceacademy@gmail.com. You can also follow my Facebook, Universal Finance Academy, and I will always be happy to help you. That's why I'm here. I want to help people with their personal finances, any other kinds of finances that they're struggling with, in their education, maybe in their business. So I'm always happy to help. And, just thank you so much for the time. I will be having some guests in the future as well. I want to show you different types of educational and career paths, in engineering and art, and cooking and everything that I can possibly think of. I want to have people who have that knowledge and experience to show you the best way for you to get into that same program or career as well. I'll also be talking in the future more about all of those things I talked about in my very first lesson in regards to, finances. So I'll be talking, hopefully I'll be talking more in the future. We talked about college, we've talked about budgeting. I want to talk about insurance in the future and investments, and then we'll go on to other things in the future. And then once I finish personal finance, we'll go on to business and public finance as well, more in depth. Yeah, but thank you so much, Tashakar, for taking the time tonight to listen to me. I hope to see you, and I hope everyone is safe and healthy. And thank you so much. And Hafiz. Have a great night.